was wrong, we felt it inside. Something told us, do not comply. Turn off the news, turn off the TV. It's time to think, get off your knees. We tried to warn loved ones, oh did we try? We tried to save lives, but we were denied. Sadly we failed and many of them died. We were kicked to the side, we did not hide. We took to the streets, we would not comply. Our conscience told us this was the world's largest lie. At first we were few, but we shortly grew. Melbourne streets saw sights that had never been seen. We fought for our rights, for all to be free. People thrown to the ground, pepper spray to the face. No matter what age, we were locked up and caged. Then the guns came out, they had no care. They shot their own people, running in fear, unarmed and peaceful. We stood for our rights, they would not stop us. We would not give up the fight. We were locked out of cafes, our families withdrew. No Christmas, no birthdays, no celebrations we knew. We were germs, enemies, a danger to you. You watched the counts on mainstream news. No further would you look, we were all cooked. Deluded, brainwashed, segregation we lived through, whilst you lived your life without any clue. People thrown to the ground, pepper spray to the face. No matter what age, we were locked up and caged. Then the guns came out, they had no care. They shot their own people, running in fear, unarmed and peaceful. We stood for our rights, they would not stop us. We would not give up the fight. Something was wrong, we felt it inside. Something told us, do not comply.
Good evening and welcome to Mantra Moments. This evening we've got Doc John back. We're calling him Doc so that we can keep ourselves out of any legal trouble. So we're going to bring him on. He's going to be speaking about lots of different things tonight. I'm really excited because, you know, John can talk. So I'll bring him on. There's going to be a little bit of a delay, unfortunately, because he's on his phone. Okay, let's bring him on. Hi, John. How are you going?
How's it going? Good to see you.
You too. You too. Let's get into this because I'm really excited about tonight. Lots of stuff to talk about. Go for it.
Okay.
And welcome back from Perth.
Yeah, welcome to everyone in Perth who's listening in, and welcome to everybody who's tuning in tonight. Thanks for the great response last time, and I'll do my best to try not bore the pants off you. Anyway, so last time I was on, we were talking about our beliefs and things like this, and I want to give the class some homework tonight, and that is just to examine what do we actually believe, and the difference between a belief is what I think something is there. Like I believe tonight is going to go okay, but I don't really know because we have to let it run its course. And the difference between something that I know for a fact, and this is the reason why is because what I was talking about last time was how the subconscious creates reality. So whatever we hold as a belief becomes reality in the, that's it. We create our own reality by what we hold as a truth, as we believe to be true. Anyway, so that's that's just sort of touching base with when I come back, because we're going to talk more about that. and having a brief discussion with Donna just before we went on, and she's pinpointed a few things that she wanted me to discuss. So, what is coming down the road? And I think this has probably been playing out in my mind since our last conversation more than anything. And before I dive into it, I'm simply paraphrasing somebody who I follow, and his name is Martin Armstrong. And if you want to find Martin Armstrong, go to, I think it's ArmstrongEconomics.org, and he is called the forecaster. And just a backstory about Martin, if I may, is simply he had in the 1980s he created a algorithm that was able to predict cycles of change, and he was a like a stockbroker, economist, like this sort of stuff. And so he was able to actually pinpoint different phases in market, in the rise and fall of market and so on. But he did such an amazing job with his algorithm that he was actually able to predict coming events like revolution, famine, wars, like this sort of stuff. So he was thrust to the forefront of geopolitics. So he was an advisor, like in the 80s, to people like Margaret Thatcher, Reagan, like that crew. And what happened is that the Americans decided that they wanted his algorithm, and he sort of said no, because he's spent his entire life fine-tuning this thing. And when I say he put in a lot of data, he put in things like the movement of the moon, the tides, even his girlfriend's monthly cycle is all plugged in. And anyway, so he said yeah, nah. And so they took him to court, and they accused him of insider trading because he was so precise with his predictions. Of course, he wasn't doing any of the sort. And so what happened? It's an interesting story. I'm sorry if I'm dragging it on, but what happened is they brought him before the court, and they would say, "Okay, how about now?" And he'd say, "Still no." And then they'd send him away for contempt of court. And basically, in America, you can be put away for 6 months for contempt of court.
Wow.
And what happened is they kept bringing him back and saying, "What about now?" And he said, "No." And so they held him in prison for 6 years. And so he was, from my understanding, he was the longest serving person who's never charged with anything, but was held in prison on contempt of court. And finally, he realized that basically they would never let him go. So he confessed to whatever they wanted him to confess to. And he did another couple of years or whatever, and then he came out. When he got out, there was a German news crew that was waiting for him, and they did a documentary on him. And that documentary is called The Forecaster. And so I invite anybody who's interested to get hold of that doco and watch it. Now, one of the things I was listening to just recently, an interview with Martin, and he was, they're doing a forecasted 2.0, so they're doing an upgraded version or another sequel, part 2 of the Forecaster. And interestingly enough, they're making a movie about his life. So Hollywood is making a movie. I assume it's Hollywood. And he said that one of the provisos that if we're going to do this, they have to show exactly what happened. So it's very much like that. Do you remember that Christian Bale movie, The Big Short?
No.
Did you ever see that? Or you should if you haven't seen it. So it's all about the Lehman Brothers and the 2008 global financial crisis and subprime mortgages and all sorts of stuff. Fantastic movie. I think Steve Carell and Christian Bale, they bore down into it. So it's going to be sort of like that. But he wanted it to be as accurate as possible. So that was a proviso. If they're going to do it, they have to show how corrupt the legal system is in America. Anyway, so that's Martin Armstrong. So what's Martin got to say? Of course, when I connect to some of Martin's talks, he's so quite a few years ago. I've been following him for quite a number of years, but quite a few years ago, he was talking about this. There's 3 cycles, for argument's sake. So you've got economic crash, which is a 20-year cycle, war, which is a 10-year cycle, and revolution, which is a 300-year cycle. Okay, so for example, when was the French Revolution? Thinking caps on. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock.
No, don't
Okay,
ask me.
it's in the 1700s. When was the American War of Independence? Okay, you'd know that.
No, I don't.
1776.
I've just started knowing things since COVID, so I don't know anything.
Right.
Nothing.
Okay, I'm just saying. So you'll realize that was 300 years ago. Okay.
Right.
So what's happening is that these 3 cycles are all happening now. So they're happening. Obviously, they've started to happen, and they're all happening in. Well, basically, put it this way: 2032 is when it all comes to an end, when the whole cycle is now complete. So we've got another 6 years to hang in. I mean, as far as I believe, right, according to Martin, according to his algorithm, and he calls his algorithm Socrates. So according to what Socrates is telling him, that the cycle of economic crash, which is happening now, and I mean, as I said, I've just come back from Perth. Big shout out to all my friends in Perth, and I had a fantastic time, of course. Beautiful place, lovely people. Shit government, I guess. What's new? And everyone works in the mine. You know, everyone's wearing yellow high vis, and doing FIFO and all this stuff. It's quite amazing. But yeah, beautiful place. I used to actually live in Busselton in 2015, 2016, which is near Margaret River. Anyway, I digress. So anyway, the economic crash is coming. So you've seen things like the rise in silver and the rise in gold prices. There's been a spike, there's been a pullback, but I can tell you that precious metals will just continue to grow. I spoke to my gold and silver dealer, who was one of us. Basically, I remember when they had the ring of bullshit around the CBD. You've got that video I noticed at the beginning with the lady in red getting. Oh, hello, Busso. Yeah, that lady in red getting pepper sprayed that day. We had to penetrate through the ring of bullshit into the police, and they basically cleared people off the streets of the CBD. And I remember furtively, avoiding the police patrols that were roaming around the city. And I ended up, I rang my friend, and I ended up in his apartment, basically hiding out, waiting for the sort of, for it to cool down. And of course, everybody moved to Richmond, and then it started up again. Anyway, so this economic crash is coming. It's sort of like a slow train wreck. And I mean, I'm not an economics expert by any stretch, and you know, but I mean, one of the reasons what's softening the blow is that they keep inflating the dollar supply, the US dollar supply. So it hasn't hit, but I mean, when I say the US dollar supply, basically the last man standing is going to be the United States anyway, according to his forecast. But what's going to happen in Europe is not going to go into recession. Europe will experience a deep depression. Like, you know, when we're talking about depression, the first thing that comes to mind is Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath. And I mean, we had to study that at school, and which was, I think, the 1920s, when entire populations traveled across America looking for work, and California was just like a dust bowl, and you know, people were actually selling their children. You know,
Oh,
there's that. Have you seen that picture of the mother selling her children? And yeah, anyway, so Europe's going to be in a deep depression. There'll be war. So I'm just going to talk about these three cycles. Okay, so let's now that we're just talking about economics. So economic depression. It's happening here. I mean, when I was in Perth, let me just go back a step. So when the property bubble bursts, okay, it doesn't pop like overnight. It deflates over about a 12-month period. So it just slowly the air goes out of the economy. Sorry, about the housing prices and so on. So, you know, we're seeing housing prices, as I understand, is reducing in the East Coast. In Perth, housing prices are still going up. But what's happening is people are trying to get their money off the board, and this is where we mentioned. I mean, you mentioned you had a guest talking about digital ID, and
yes.
what they're trying to do is they're trying to stop the um, the flight of money out of the economy. So that's why when you go to the bank and you want to take out money, sound familiar? You
No.
basically you get crucified
Yeah.
and grilled as for an hour or more, like
Oh,
interrogated. What are you doing with this money, right? And so the reality is, I mean, I I just assume people know this, but oh, hello, yep.
you're
I'll
back.
say it again. When you put your money in the bank, the money is the bank's. It's not yours. Like, read the fine print, right? So that's their money now, and that is why they've got these laws, which are bail-in laws, where they can basically take your money, and then basically bail out the banks. Okay.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that's another rabbit hole. How
Mm.
money is created in the banks and fractional reserve lending and all sort of good stuff. Anyway, so there's going to be an economic crash, and like, to my horror, when I was listening to Martin, he's now advising people to have 2 years of food put away, right? Like, when during the COVID bullshit, I, like everybody else, we sort of put food aside, and
Yes.
we thought 3 months worth of food, of pasta and rice and all this sort of stuff, you know. And I mean, I've got boxes. You see those boxes? So
Couple them.
I mean, they're full of food and probably sexual devices. I'm not sure. I
Oh,
haven't looked for a long time. But anyway, I'm kidding. So anyway, so he's saying 2 years of food. I mean, that's pretty scary. I mean, of course, he's talking to the people in the United States. So, you know, in Australia, well, you know, no matter what they do to the economy and what they do to the market, there's still fish in the ocean, birds in the sky. There's bunnies running around. My
Yeah.
dog just ate a rabbit this morning. I mean, sorry, just about an hour ago. He's outside sleeping it off now. But so there's still going to be food, available. We can still, hunt, fish, grow. But I think it would be very prudent now. And by the way, update: Aldi is having. I just looked at the Aldi catalog about an hour ago, and Aldi's selling those. Those where you grow food. What do you call those things? That stand off the ground. I'm going to buy
Oh,
about 5 of those. They're $29 each. About a meter by a meter and a half. So I'm going to create a little garden where I can grow some food and things like that and keep the slugs and snails away. I think that would be prudent because remember, well, you wouldn't remember during the war, and neither do I. But during the war, they had victory gardens, and so people turned their backyards into where they grew food for themselves. They turned the nature strip into food, and you notice how, remember, they wanted you to like last year or whenever, they wanted you to tell exactly where your gardens were and what you were growing. Do you remember that? The
I
Andrews
remember.
government.
Yeah, and he didn't want us to grow food. They were warning against it because it wasn't safe.
Yeah, because you'd get COVID from your artichokes and all that sort of rubbish.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it would be prudent. I mean, I know a lot of people. I mean, I haven't really got a green thumb, but I'm definitely I'm going to do my best. And I think that would be prudent for people to start thinking along those lines. Aldi's stepped up, even though they're Marxist, and I can't stand them, but I have to go there anyway because things are cheap. And cash in and start building your garden up and getting ready for next year, because 2026 is when it's going to happen. I mean, it's happening now. They're putting the squeeze on, and it's going to be, well, put it this way: America probably took 40 years to recover from the Great Depression. You get it? Like, it took 40 years or more for them to actually recover from that, what happened to them. So, and it affected people's psyche. So, I mean, some of the listeners will remember, like I remember my father, for example. Both my mother and father survived the war, World War II, and there were certain things that they were, like closing the cupboards. That was before I talk, I had to get up and close the cupboards, and I just sort of thought to myself, why do I have to? I can't stand seeing an open cupboard. It's because my father used to make us close the cupboards because cold air would come out of the cupboards, and it would, like trying to keep the place warm, like this sort of thing. So anyway, so that's what I'm talking. This hangover from the Great Depression is still in people's psyche for decades and decades to come. So okay, so there's a financial disaster coming. I mean, it's coming. It's happening right now, and it's all engineered. It's not from it's not just because, oops, we borrowed too much money. What can we do? It's all by design. It's all done by the banks, by the central banks. What they do is they expand the money supply, and they lend out. You can get money for all sorts of stuff, and then when everyone's basically up to their eyeballs in debt, then they start dragging in the money supply, reducing the money supply, and then people start going to the wall, and then they just start gathering up and enriching themselves. That's why BlackRock has so much property. Why they're buying up farms and houses in America. They want people just basically to live and rent for the rest of their lives. But anyway, I digress. Any questions on that, my lovely?
I did. Someone's asking where you're going with all this. I did see that pop up. Where's this
Oh,
all
sure.
leading?
So I'm just giving people just giving you an idea. Okay, so financial disaster is coming. Step one.
Yes.
So the second thing is war. Okay, so these, as I said earlier, so these three cycles are all happening at the same time. They're all converging in this period. So the next thing is war. So when we're talking about war, we're talking about the war with Russia, which NATO is already basically at war with Russia. Of course, at the end of the Cold War, NATO should have just been dissolved. They're simply there to counteract Russia, communist, the Soviet aggression and all sorts of stuff. So now NATO basically it has to justify its existence by starting war with Russia. So anyway, I'm not going to talk too much about the war with Russia because it's been going on, Ukraine and so on for so long now. But fundamentally, Russia has nothing to gain by invading Europe. Europe is broken, like they're bankrupt. They've got nothing, they don't produce anything, they don't have any resources, nothing. So why would Russia basically want to invade Europe? What will happen is NATO will go to war with Russia because when they're at war, and of course I'm not an expert on this, but my understanding is because of the trillions and trillions of dollars of debt that they find themselves in, if they're at war, they won't default on their debt payments. It suspends their debt payment. So
Right.
war is very attractive to the EU, to these countries. So that's why this insanity of why they're pushing. I mean, you and I, for example, we grew up in the Cold War, Cold War era. And I mean, we never had to do the duck and cover and get under the tables when the nuclear bombs went off. But, I think, when did the Berlin Wall come down? I think it was 1989, by memory. Someone can probably tell me. So, so that wasn't the end of communism, for example. That was the release of communism into the West, right? Because now we have Marxists, in government, in socialism is basically being, in the schools, everything like that. So it's basically not that communism ended. It basically just was released into the West, Anyway, so there is going to be World War III is going to happen, and whether or not there's going to be a nuclear exchange, that's the question. And the way it's looking is that they're going to throw nukes at each other, possibly. That's what's sort of, I mean, Trump almost gave Ukraine tactical cruise missiles so it could shoot rockets thousands of kilometers into Russia. I mean, if that's not provocation, I mean, imagine if Russia, for example, gave Venezuela tactical cruise missiles to fire into America. Imagine how everyone would feel about that. Anyway, I'm sort of getting a bit off subject. So the point, what I'm going to say is, if the war begins with the Third World War starts in Europe, and of course this is Europe going through the Great Depression and all sorts of stuff at the same time. Imagine how bad that's going to be. China will invade Taiwan because there is never a better time. So that will begin because that's the only opportunity. But whilst America and all the other countries are basically going to be distracted with what's happening in Europe, the war will begin in Taiwan, and
John,
they'll probably win that war.
Is this that guy you were talking about before? Is this what he's saying will happen?
Yeah, I'm just paraphrasing what he's been saying.
Right, yeah.
So
go on.
bring it around to speed.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So now this is the thing okay, so we've had those two things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the third thing is revolution. And so what he is what his algorithm, not him, but what his algorithm is predicting is a complete collapse of the political class, totally gone by 2032. Now, you and I know, I mean, okay, I'm speaking for you, but I personally think that we have to jettison the political class completely. I mean, look, at the moment, I'm reading a book called The Wisdom of Psychopaths. Okay.
Oh.
And it's basically, one of the things that they have pointed out is how high people in politics score on that psychopathic spectrum. Like they're right up there. They're actually eclipsing people who are in prison, like like what you'd imagine a psychopath to be. The people in power are psychopathic. Why would you have these people? They don't have any remorse. They lie continually. They're just self-aggrandizing. It's all the aspects of sociopathy. Psychopathy. Am I trying to say the right word? I'm making words up now. Anyway, so why have these people run your life? And that's what's happening because this whole program, the Agenda 21, Agenda 30, for example, if you're dealing with the council, you're dealing with the United Nations. That's who the council basically is. It's the UN. When we went to the protest, I noticed the not the most recent one, but the one where I got pepper sprayed and the dog. Yeah, knocked to the ground, pepper sprayed. I had to hold my Labrador up to protect me. But anyway, so I noticed that those riot police are all foreigners. I thought that was kind of odd. But of course, there's a lot of speculation about who they are. And I mean, during the lockdowns, we thought that they were an extension of the United Nations.
Yes.
Anyway, so
do you know
so
that?
Anyway, so
I saw cars in Frankston with UN written on them, like they were UN cars. I took a photo.
Really?
Oh my God!
You're
Near the
kidding.
cemetery. Yeah, it's probably a couple of years ago now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's who you're dealing with. So this agenda, which they basically see, the thing is they have to articulate what they're doing. It's a part of the rules. They have to say, this is what's coming, like the digital ID sort of thing. They have to basically explain, we're going to do this because of this, but it's for those who don't understand the significance or the ramifications. It's what's called a tacit agreement, meaning you don't say anything, and because you didn't say anything, you are actually agreeing to what's happening. It's kind of like a cosmic law of they can't. For example, speaking of which, as I may have mentioned to you, there's a lot of loopholes in the law, for example, and you may think if you get a speeding ticket, for example, you've got 72 hours in which you can cool off. So you can actually just send the speeding ticket back to the police and just write on it. It's not unclaimed. It's basically rejected claim. Okay, so you just write rejected claim. That's the end of that because you're not contracting with them. So to the casual observer, this seems like a loophole. But it's not really a loophole. It's because when they create these things, they can't be hermetically sealed. There has to be an out. So because it's against the rules to create a hermetically sealed thing which people can't escape from. It has to be by choice. So, when they walk into the slaughter yard, they're walking on their own. They're making their way towards their destruction. This is where I was where I came up with that morbid obedience I mentioned last time. people just basically following, just walking into the. Actually, do you remember when I remember going to after one of the protests, I went to the exhibition buildings with a group of people, and there were people lined up to get their jab, and there was long queues of people. And whilst we were standing, I mean, we weren't trying to interrupt them, but we were just there to observe. And if anybody basically approached us, we would give them our opinion. This is
Yes.
obviously quite a few years back. And they actually took someone out on a stretcher, and they went past this long line of people with someone on a stretcher being on a gurney, being wheeled back to the ambulance, and people just standing there going, oh yeah, like, okay,
Yeah.
like nothing. So yeah, this is what I mean by morbid obedience.
Yeah.
Anyway, so okay, so we're looking at war next year, but the
This is a good, positive show.
Oh yeah, I'm
War.
sorry. You wanted me to talk about what's coming?
No.
I'm telling you.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
No, of course.
there's no point churching it up. I mean,
No.
like in times of peace, prepare for war, right?
Yes.
That's,
Yep.
Sun Tzu, times of peace, prepare for war. Pray for
Yeah.
peace and prepare for war. Okay. So,
Yes.
but the thing is the collapse of the political class. And what we are seeing is that people can't take it anymore. They can't take the taxes, all the the malfeasance. I mean, I'd say shit fuckery, but I mean I can't say that. So, but from the government basically, does the government follow the will of the people? Not at all. They follow the agenda of whoever is telling them what to do, and they're
Yes.
following it to the letter. Look at this. This guy Daniel Andrews. So it's just come out that all the lockdowns was basically just something he dreamt up. It wasn't something. It wasn't something that he. The science advisor and the medical board, and they said, you have to do this, for this and that. No, he had no consultation whatsoever. So where does he get that idea from? He either goes to somewhere and they tell him, or he gets a phone call, and he just basically, for whatever benefit that he gets, I mean, did you see him in that parade in China walking along with whoever the premier is now and all sorts of stuff? Just recently, right? So he attended China. I mean, he's
Yes.
whatever, whatever. That's who you're dealing with. So these people, the people, us, okay. So for example, the Commonwealth. What the Commonwealth means is the people. Okay, when America says we the people, and we talk about the Commonwealth of Australia, Commonwealth means the same. It means the people of Australia. So the people of Australia are basically, and all over the world, are they're saying enough is enough. And
Yes.
these lunatics wanting to fire nuclear weapons at a country, it's not communist anymore. I'm referring to Russia, of course. It's just it is what it is. It's not the enemy. They actually, I won't bang on about it, but they actually invited Russia to join NATO when the Berlin Walls collapsed. And anyway, they reneged on that deal and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, who cares? Okay, so the most important thing is that the collapse of the political class, and the question is how are we going? What will happen? I mean, personally, and this is me only, is I believe we can use technology to run countries. We don't need people, because I was a very early supporter of blockchain technology, which is Bitcoin, crypto, all this sort of stuff, like way back when it's first started. And the thing about blockchain is it's 100% transparency. It means everyone who's on the blockchain has a ledger of what's happening in real time. So you can't play with it without everybody knowing. You see, it's 100% transparency. And this technology we could use, for argument's sake, of running our country, where just basically we use a not AI, but we use just an algorithm to make calculations and say, okay, this is how much tax we need to pay. This is how much, like everything's just basically calculated, worked out how many hours of work you need to do. But the point is, it's not because I believe, like Elon Musk and, like we should have chips in our heads or whatever. It's because we need to remove people from the equation, from this ruling class, because it attracts these psychopaths, and these psychopaths are basically elevated to power, and they don't climb up that ladder on their own. They're chosen, they're picked and put in place, and then they're basically they can't do anything unless they do whatever they're told. If they go against the grain, they either, like I was reading recently about an American senator whose plane was shot down in a crash in Romania. I think maybe in the early 2000s or something. He had a bullet hole through the top of his head, 45 caliber hole. So someone shot him, and in the process of the plane crashing. You'll have to look it up, of course. But that's what I mean. If they don't play the game, they're gone, and that's it. They're exposed. Stuff appears on their computer, which I mean, imagine for example, in Australia, they actually passed a law. I mean, did they really pass a law? But they made it so that they can actually get into your email and send emails from your email account saying whatever they like. So, imagine if an email turns up in Canberra where I'm, an AI version of me or whatever is basically wanting to burn down Parliament House or, whatever, run nude through the gardens, and that I never sent that, but there it is, it's just your word against mine now. How did that, you know what I mean? Like it's incredible.
How do we get
anyway?
There?
So there you go. So hold on tight, guys. Hold on. I mean, the Chinese have a saying is, to live in interesting times, and we are definitely living in interesting times. And if you've noticed, like your news feed or YouTube feed or whatever you're basically plugged into, it's the alarm. Personally, I'm noticing that the alarm bells are ringing in a lot of different places where people are identifying, like it's, the gold and silver market, like silver just spiked to its all-time high. I mean, personally, I think, put it this way, when I was in Perth, I wanted to buy, as a gift for a friend, I wanted to buy some silver, and the queue at the Perth Mint was 90 minutes long to get to the counter. Now, because the price has gone down again, it's gone down a bit, so the queues aren't there, I've been told. But, well, if you've got a bit of money, I'd probably get your money out of the bank, and I'd probably buy gold and silver. That's I think it'd probably be all right. And make sure, of course, don't buy shares in silver, because this is the problem, because they sell shares. It's they can sell a kilo of silver. They can sell to 100 shares in that one piece of silver, and that's what's happened. I think you may have noticed some of the silver bullion sellers have basically run out of silver, and because people are going with their piece of paper going, oh, I bought 10 kilos of silver, and I'd like my silver, and they don't have it because they've sold that 10 pieces of silver over and over and over so many times, and that's kept the price of silver down artificially. I mean, sorry, I'm a bit of a silver. I bought a lot of silver back in the day. I don't have any now. Not really, but anyway. So yeah. Anyway, so in conclusion, you have to try and get the money off the board. If you own your property and so on, then it's probably going to be okay for you, because at least you have something, even though you don't really own it. But that's another lecture for another time. If you've got a bit of cash in the bank, I wouldn't keep it there. I'd probably buy some gold and silver. Crypto is very complex, and if you don't really understand crypto, and I mean, I've been in crypto since 2014, and I don't fully understand it. I can't fully articulate it, but anyway, and if you're going to buy crypto, buy Bitcoin. I don't think, maybe in the top 10, the XRPs and Ethereum and all this stuff, you're probably fairly safe. But for me, it's, I bought crypto a while back, and yeah, just hung on to it,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
there you are.
Okay, John.
I'm sorry.
Why?
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
Okay. PsyOps.
so I'm a Sagittarius. So I'm a Sag, right? So Sag gives it to you straight. Okay.
Oh no,
So
no,
it might be.
that's all good. No, we need it. We need it to be straight. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
But tell us. So don't apologise. But talk to us a little bit about the PsyOps.
Okay. So what I was talking about last time is, at the moment we're being bombarded with information, and this is just going to keep growing. Of course, you've got these two dichotomies. You've got, for example, you've got 1984, where the people are just basically like in this one narrow, ministry of truth. Here it is, that's it, and everyone's just marching towards whatever. And then you've got the opposite, which is Huxley's Brave New World. And in Brave New World, there's so much information that people can't disseminate. And from the way I see it, we're being, and this is obviously an effect of the Aquarian age, because what happens during we've come from the Piscean age. I mean, I'm talking about the big epochs, 2,200 and something years. So we've come from the Piscean age, which is darkness pushing in and people holding onto faith. That's why the Catholic Church was the operating system that controlled the population. I don't want to insult anyone about religion or anything like that. Please, let's not go there. But I'm just sorry, I sort of let the cat out of the bag a bit. Catholicism means universal. So it's a universal religion that was basically put to control the masses. And so we've had the Piscean age, the sign of the fish, the fisher of men, the ring of the fisherman, all the Piscean symbols. So I'm going to get crucified from this. Anyway, religious joke. Moving on. So now that we've come into the Aquarian age, so light is now coming into the planet. And what happens is, when light starts to illuminate, the shadows are dispelled. And a famous saying is, you can increase the light, but you can't increase darkness, right? So light will push the darkness away. You can't increase darkness and push the light away. Okay, so it's a one-way trip. And I have to say, these people have known this since the last time, since they put Christ up on the cross. They've known what's coming. They've been getting ready for it, and here we are. you and me. That's why we're on the podcast. That's why people are tuned in. That because something is happening. And because we're in the Aquarian age, all these people who've lived in the darkness are now being exposed, and they're scurrying away, and they're basically trying to get away from the light. But the light is the truth. It exposes things in stark reality. And we can see, and unfortunately, we are seeing so much now. I mean, how many times anybody listening will be able to tell me, how many times have you had a conversation with somebody which 5 years ago you would, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, you could never have that conversation. I mean, I walk. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm just reading someone's comment. I go for a walk on the beach with the doggo every morning, and I mean these are pretty much they're just pretty much every people with dogs, and we talk, and some of the conversations we have is, I mean, they're right on my side. They see what I see. I mean, we see, that's what I mean about belief and everything like that. Do you believe it? Is it something, do we know it for sure? I'm not sure. Is this going to come to pass? We don't know, but we can make an educated guess. So, we're having conversations with people. I'm having conversations in checkouts, in parks, in wherever you might be, which if you opened your mouth 5 years ago, people just would have just thought you were a nutcase. But and this is the effect of this is what happens with the Aquarian age, because light is spreading into the world, and we are seeing these things. But what's happening is we're being bombarded with the truth all the time, so much that we're being beaten down. Now, of course, as a PsyOp, what's happening is we're getting this distortion of, like, we want to just drink from the faucet, but we're getting the fire hose from the people who've been controlling the world for so long. They're hosing us down with all this other distractions. So when I was over in Perth, I was sort of trying to think metaphorically of tuning a radio, and I've got my headphones on and I'm trying to tune in. In the old days when you have to adjust that dial and you're trying to tune into that signal, and then you can hear that crystal clear sound. And you basically, I can hear them, and they can hear me. But there's so much noise, there's so much distortion, and this is why I began with our original talk about how to filter through all this information, and how to sort of grade what we're listening to, saying this is A1. Like, I saw that myself. I was there. You and I, for example, we were there. We saw what happened. So that's kind of A1. Like, I saw it. You were there. We experienced it together. So there's no ambiguity about that. But some things where it's just somebody, like a guy in a singlet sitting in his car doing a podcast or on his phone, this is the sort of questions I ask. Who's the guy? Who's he connected to? And my friends who are far more strident with all that, they want to know who his family is, who his bloodline is. They want to know everything, who this person is, because they want to know exactly who that person is if we're going to listen to them, and what are they saying. Now, unfortunately, we can't always have that luxury, but we can say, okay, I heard this thing about something, and I just put that over here. And when I get more information, I can add to that and start to build that picture until I'm satisfied with the whole thing. And then I can say, yep, did Daniel Andrews ever fall down a staircase? I have evidence that seems to contradict that. And that happened 24 hours later. I wasn't there, but other people were. Anyway, so we're saying we're running out of time.
Yeah, we are. But Sissy's just asking, do you think the army will turn against the citizens of Australia?
Now, the reason I was in the military, and one of the things I can tell you is that the military is there to protect Australian citizens from external aggression. So as a soldier, if someone gives you an order to do something and you don't agree, you think that is wrong, you don't have to follow that order. Okay? So if somebody said, go and shoot those women and children, and believe me, Australians, they're very good soldiers. Okay? They're one of the best soldiers. And they're just going to say, and the reason why is because they think for themselves. They're not robots. So Australian soldiers are not going to. I mean, this threat that the army is going to be on. I remember during COVID, they said there's soldiers going to be on every street and all this sort of stuff. They're going to be on the corners, checkpoints everywhere. I mean, I remember going through a checkpoint and there was actually a soldier, poor bugger, was standing there. And of course, I just gave him the knife hand, bring your heels together when you're talking to me, like all this sort of stuff. And that was that. So in answer to that question, I don't believe that the Australian Army will ever be a threat to the Australian public. Conversely, I think they will be an asset because when push comes to shove, historically, it's the military who's got on the side of the revolutionaries and basically led against the totalitarian government. The police, on the other hand, historically, the police have always sided with whoever is in charge. Remember, when the Germans went into France, the French police were on the side of the Germans. When I was in Afghanistan, I remember standing on a checkpoint with the police, and we were talking about the Russians, of course, because the Russians were there for about 8 years, and they were talking about fighting the Taliban and the Mujahideen. Sorry, not the Taliban, the Mujahideen. And I said, hang on a sec, you were fighting the Mujahideen, but the Mujahideen were trying to liberate Afghanistan from the Russians. And I said, oh yeah, no, but the Russians were in charge. So the police are like attack dogs. All they want to do is attack the population. That's it. That's all they do. I mean, I've got friends who are police, and I'm sure they're going to probably call me, and but in my brief way of trying to explain it, that's sort of what.
That's what we've experienced with COVID, isn't it? That's what we experienced. We experienced them they didn't have to do it. They chose to do it. They didn't have to pepper spray that old lady. They didn't have to shoot us. They didn't have to do it. They chose to do it.
They chose to microwave us. Like, why are we talking about that, for God's sake? They microwaved thousands of people. Yes. Nothing's, like casually, we're just going to burn, blisters on the face and around the neck and all sorts of stuff. Why aren't we talking about that? That has to be a war crime. It has to be something, but it's just like, nothing. So yeah, the police will never be on your side, but the military will be. And in a time of martial, if in time of martial law, the military is superior to the police. The police are subordinate. So I have a lot of faith in the Australian military, even though the Australian military is very small. It's about 26,000 men and women, or maybe 30. It's not very big. So they're not going to be on every corner. It's better that we have the military on our side when it push comes to shove, for argument's sake.
Yeah, well, Martin's saying soldiers he knows are ready to stop this shit show, even cops. Yes, and I agree with that, Martin. I believe I know a few of them too. So what's going to happen? Who knows? We just have to keep our fingers crossed and everything else, and keep faith, I guess.
Hold on, it's going to be a hell of a ride. Yeah, it's going to be a hell of a ride. Plant your gardens. Make sure you've got access to water. Go get a fishing rod. Go get a bow and arrow. Get a 22 caliber if you can get a license. And that's what I'd do. And then basically just make sure you got access to food and water, and hold on for dear life. And we'll just see, because believe me, we've never seen anything like it. And in conclusion, they're pulling out all the stops, right? They're throwing everything at us. That's what fifth fifth generation warfare is. It means they're throwing the kitchen sink at you, and they're doing
Yeah.
it. So we're just sitting. We've got to get through this and get to the other side. And everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Everything. Even when I was a prisoner of war, for God's sake, I knew there would be a day I would walk free. I knew. I knew when I was in the commandos, we were getting beasted, and I knew that there'd be a minute, an hour, a day, a minute, and an hour where I'd be walking back to my car, and it would be over. So everything, this arc, always has a conclusion, and our conclusion, as far as I understand, is we've got 6 years to hang in there. All right, we can make it. We'll make it, but the world will be totally different after that.
It'll be
Sorry,
better.
I'm a bit strident.
No, that was good. A great way to finish it. Thank you, John. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we must go now because we're over time.
Time's up.
John. Time's up.
Good night, everybody. Yeah. Go, peace.
Okay, guys, we're ending it now. Thank you for tuning in. Really got really extra interesting at the end. We'll have to continue that one, I think. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Something was wrong, we felt it inside. Something told us do not comply. Turn off the news, turn off the TV. It's time to think, get off your knees. We tried to warn loved ones, oh did we try? We tried to save lives, but we were denied. Sadly we failed and many of them died. We were kicked to the side, we did not hide. We took to the streets, we would not comply. Our conscience told us this was the world's largest lie. At first we were few, but we shortly grew. Melbourne streets saw sights that had never been seen. We fought for our rights, for all to be free. People thrown to the ground, pepper spray to the face. No matter what age, we were locked up and caged. Then the guns came out, they had no care. They shot their own people, running in fear, unarmed and peaceful. We stood for our rights, they would not stop us. We would not give up the fight. We were locked out of cafes, our families withdrew. No Christmas, no birthdays, no celebrations we knew. We were germs, enemies, a danger to you. You watched the counts on mainstream news. No further would you look, we were all cooked. Deluded, brainwashed, segregation we lived through, whilst you lived your life without any clue. People thrown to the ground, pepper spray to the face. No matter what age, we were locked up and caged. Then the guns came out, they had no care. They shot their own people, running in fear, unarmed and peaceful. We stood for our rights, they would not stop us. We would not give up the Something was wrong, we felt it inside. Something told us do not comply.